Hello, everyone. I'm sitting here with Joe Kagerer from Vintage Bike O.C. Thank you so much, Joe, for connecting with me. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Vintage Bike O.C. and learn more about you. So without further ado, tell us about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks, Olivia, for doing this for our group. And this is not the first blog interview, but the first video interview I've ever done for the group. So
Great.
it's pretty exciting and it's cool. And it's nice to have Russ Brown supporting us like they have for the last probably 5 years or so. So yeah, who I am. Well, I'm a web developer actually, and I work for a company based out of Orange County, and we do the websites for a major Japanese motorcycle manufacturer who happens to be um, based out of Orange County, or their American operations are based out of Orange County. And I don't know if I should mention their name, but everybody knows Team Green
Okay.
anyway. So, and I've been doing computer programming for 40 years and web development for 25 years, basically, almost as long as the internet's been around, basically. And so yeah, we started. So that's a little bit who I am, and that's kind of how I got involved with Vintage Bike O.C. It, before I before I got involved, it was called Vintage Bike Night originally,
Mhm.
and we used to meet down in Huntington. Well, we've always met in Huntington Beach, and they started in 2004. Greg McBride and Thomas Harper started it in 2004, and Greg's still involved. I'm not sure what happened to Thomas. He may have moved out of Orange County, but they started as they had a group of guys that met at a pizzeria, and they pretty much met on Wednesday night just for pizza and beer.
Okay.
And they started, they had a website called Vintage Bike Night
Mhm.
.com, and it was a really nice domain, but they let it lapse after 2 years, so it went away.
Mm.
And then they were meeting on Sunday afternoons because with their 6-volt systems, in the wintertime, nobody wanted to ride their motorcycles in the dark, basically.
Right.
So by the time I joined in 2006, I just happened to run into them. And I'd go down to Huntington Beach to go for a run or walk at the beach. And I noticed that once a month there'd be a group of motorcyclists there. And so in 2006, I bought a 1977 Kawasaki KZ1000, and it was my first vintage bike. And so I went down to that pizzeria and found out, oh, they meet on the second Sunday. So that's when I joined up with the group.
Okay, so you
So,
have been involved for quite some time, and also
yeah,
you are working in the motorcycle industry
right.
in web development. So you have been around motorcycles for quite some time. So tell us how and why you got involved with motorcycles, and how long have you been doing the riding portion of it?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I grew up in Michigan and my dad hated motorcycles. And he was of that generation where, bikers were thought of as one percenters for the most part.
Mhm.
And so it was something I was always interested in, but in Michigan you have a very short riding season. And so one of my best friends growing up had a Harley. I had 1200. I'm not sure what it was. It was 77 Harley,
Mhm.
and I rode on the back of that a couple times, and but I had a roommate for a lot of years that had a motorcycle, and I was always kind of on the other side of the fence, and I learned there's two types of people in the world: those who love motorcycles and those who don't realize they love motorcycles. And So I was always one of those guys, I'd love to have a bike, but boy, they seem hard to operate. And I don't know why it was, because I drove a manual transmission all my life. I wouldn't dream of having an automatic. And, well, anyway, long story short, in 2000, I took a job in Laguna Beach, and had a 25-mile commute, and the 405 was all torn up, and I happened to be at Speedway, which is something I really support, Speedway racing in Costa Mesa. And it was when the Buell Blast first came out. And they were riding these little 500cc singles around the track, and they said, for $49.95, you can be in the carpool lane. And it was like, wow, that's it. That's my answer to my commute. And I took the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course in 2000, and the day I graduated, I went up to Burt's in West Covina and bought a used Honda CB750 Nighthawk.
Okay.
And and up until the pandemic, I rode almost every day. And there was very few days of the year, unless I wasn't in town, that I didn't ride a motorcycle. So I put 40,000 miles on that first Honda, and I thought I wore it out, but sold it to a kid that put another 60 on it. So
So it's been a great passion of yours for, I
oh
guess,
yeah,
20 years now.
20 years, yeah.
And so you briefly mentioned that you got involved with Vintage Bike O.C. back in 2006.
Hmm.
But you are kind of the head honcho right now. So talk to
Yeah.
us about your position with Vintage Bike Orange County, and what do you do for the club, and what do you do at the club right now?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I think Greg and Thomas, well, they started out just a bunch of friends meeting,
Mhm.
and then it grew to about 45 people. And then I think they kind of started it possibly thinking there was maybe a business venture involved, kind of thing involved, or maybe there's monetary, I don't know, or what, either way, they lost interest in kind of running the club. And by the time I joined in 2006, our meets were down to like 6 people.
Oh, okay.
And it was, and at the height in 2004 and 5, they were up to like 45 people.
Mhm.
And so as soon as I joined, I don't know if it was my fault, but the membership started, well, not membership, just the people that showed up at the meet started dropping off. And Thomas was involved back then, and I talked to him, and I said, I'd really like to take this over and try and build something from it. And they'd lost their website, and they lost their domain, like I mentioned, Vintage Bike Night. And so the people that owned that, squatted that domain, wanted $800. and and I thought, well, we don't meet at night, and we're in Orange County, so Vintage Bike O.C., and
Right.
so I just registered that domain and built the website, basically, a skeleton website for
Mhm.
it, and talked to Thomas, and put this logo together. I
Mhm.
I don't know which way to point. Put that logo together, and talked to Thomas, and he gave me 85 email addresses, and I just kind of took it over, and showed up and with business cards and said, hey, our name's Vintage Bike O.C. now, and nobody seemed to care. Nobody. In fact, people were happy that it grew. And since then, we grew from about 85 email addresses to almost 1,000. I've never quite hit 1,000 active emails, but right now we got about 950 email people. If they,
Okay, so
if,
you really helped it grow with your
oh
involvement.
yeah,
And now with the night, the or not the night, but the meetup, I should say, maybe can you just walk us through what a day at the meet is for people who have never joined before?
Oh, yeah. So, you mentioned a club. We're not really a club, we're just a meet, and
Hmm.
anybody can show up and anybody can enter their bikes. And the only restriction on entering your bike is it's got to be 30 years or older, which
Okay.
is now 1992, which doesn't even seem old to most of us.
That's the
And
year I was born, so I'm
great.
vintage.
Well, I don't want to call you vintage, but if you were a motorcycle, you would be. Anyway, but yeah, so anybody can show up, and I got a couple rules around it that you have to show up before 3 o'clock to be
Mhm.
part of the voting, and then you can only win once because winning bike of the month, what you get is a write up on our website and a photo gallery on our website. And if people won more than once, we'd have just duplicate articles out on the website. So there's many people that think, oh, a bike from 10 years ago should be eligible again, but all those articles are still out there.
Okay.
And so there wouldn't be much value in allowing people to win twice. Plus, many of the bikes that come, if these guys were able to win multiple times, they just win every time they brought their bikes.
Right. And I've been there a couple times and I've seen a few times, well, the times that I've come that people bring multiple bikes. So yeah,
Right.
they could easily just win it for that day.
Right,
But
right. Yeah, usually the people that bring multiple bikes, recently a guy brought 3 bikes and they all competed with themselves. He would have been better off just bringing one of them, but he still won. So,
that's right. But that's
yeah,
okay. It's all for
yeah.
fun and it's a great show for everyone.
Oh,
And you've been involved for so long now. And I want to know what your favorite thing is about the bike meets and what keeps you involved year after year.
oh, well, definitely. I love the motorcycles and I like all brands and I'm personally, I own Japanese motorcycles, inline fours in particular, but that's just me. That's the vehicles I've always driven, and the ones I've always ridden. So, but I like them all. But really, the people, I have made so many friends, and unfortunately, with vintage bikes, you get a lot of older guys, and so I've lost a lot of friends too over the years. It's sad, but it's kind of the way a group like this kind of goes.
Right.
And um, but yeah, definitely the people are the best things about it. And I have I have people that I support on my website with advertising and stuff, but it's pretty much when it's not really a business, it's just a hobby for me.
Right.
And most of the sponsors are just businesses that I like and I support and want to support. And that's come around and helped me in so many ways, outside when I needed help on a bike, it's kind of easier for me to find that. And
Okay,
so,
that's
yeah,
great. And you mentioned that this is a really fun hobby for you, and
right,
that's why you're doing it year after year. So, is
right.
there any sights of potentially growing this a bit more instead of just doing the contest once a month? Do you have any sights of doing different things, making it more of an event or making it more of a club?
No, for me right now, this is all. I never expected it to last this long. I've been doing it for 15 years, or yeah, and when I started, I thought, well, let's keep this thing going a little bit, and so I've never really wanted to turn it into a business. It's just a hobby, and I don't want to make money off of it because I don't want to get taxes involved. And
Okay.
people say, oh, you should sell t-shirts. Well, I'm not really in the t-shirt business. And
Hmm.
in fact, I've said to t-shirt people, if you want to sell t-shirts, you're welcome to, we could work out something if somebody wanted to provide that service. But, I don't really want to be in the t-shirt business, and I really don't want to do more tax filings because, it's just a pain. So keeping it low key and informal like we do. I was looking for the word.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just easy. Show
Right.
up and run the meet. So,
Okay. So keeping it just as it's obviously doing great because there's still a turnout month after month.
right.
So if anybody's interested in helping you with the meet once a month, how can people get involved? And are there any positions that you're looking for to help you further the bike meet?
Well, right now, I've had many volunteers over the years to help out. Brian Tinkler is a guy that's involved with motorcycles all over Orange County, and Brian's helped a lot. He used to bring a lot of the equipment. He used to shoot pictures at every one of our meets.
Mhm.
Tom and Debbie Hopkins, a couple from Orange County, were involved for years, and since the pandemic, they haven't been back. I really miss Tom and Debbie, but John Zindler is a guy from Costa Mesa that's been helping me out with the voting. But there's there's a not a lot to do. But if anybody wanted to help out, they could just show up to the meet and ask me, and if we can put them to work. Or
Mhm.
but right now, I kind of have it dialed in. It used to be a lot simpler. I'd show up on my motorcycle with backpack and to put the stuff on the ground next to my bike, but now I have a table and cones, and I have to drive my car to my motorcycle meet. So it's
Okay.
kind of that's a bummer. But I've been trying to figure out how I can make a trailer to bring the stuff. I think that'd be really cool, but I've never done that.
Well, in due time, you never know.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, and we briefly spoke about it, you've been riding for 2 decades now, well, over 2 decades.
Mhm.
So we always like to ask, have you ever gone down on the road when
Oh
riding?
yeah.
If so, what did you learn from it?
Yeah, it was October 15th, 2012
Oh,
at 8:45 on the 405 right north of the 133.
okay.
And it was a really weird thing. I was just commuting. Most of my miles, I probably got 200,000 miles under my belt
Mhm,
at least. But most of them are commuting miles in Orange County.
mhm,
And it was just a morning. I was kind of late for work, and I was coming out of the carpool lane, and I did a shoulder check to the right to make sure I wasn't pulling in front of anybody. And as soon as I looked forward, the guy in front of me on the car stopped so quickly that his tail end of the car shot up in the air.
oh
And
no.
I was on my 2004 Yamaha FZ1,
Mhm,
and I think what happened, I'm not sure what happened. I think what happened was I grabbed too much front brake,
mhm,
and I might have been on the line in the bot dots.
mhm.
And because suddenly I was sliding on the 405 and next to the bike, and it was pretty scary. And I had a full face helmet and full gear on, except jeans. I was wearing jeans and boots.
Mhm.
Those jeans lasted about 2 seconds, and I had an armored jacket that lasted pretty well, but it went through the jacket, it went through my gloves, went both sides of my helmet have rain grooves in it. My right forearm has some rain grooves in it still, and but I was lucky. I got up and walked away from it. But
Yeah, I'd say you
yeah,
made it well.
yeah, it was interesting. I remember sliding along the freeway and thinking, I hope nobody hits me from behind. And I thought I was with the bike, and when I stood up, the bike was at least about 10 or 20 yards away from me. So it
Wow.
was, and I didn't think I was going that fast, but it just so happened ambulance was next to me in traffic,
Mhm.
and they pulled over, and I had them take me in just in case, but I was fine.
Okay,
But
well, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, in that case, it was one of the guys that came to Vintage Bike O.C. and I supported with advertising. Uh, Towing service. He's no longer in business. Unfortunately, he passed away. But I called Mike up and I said, "Hey, I had an accident," and he found out where my bike was towed. He went and picked up the bike. He paid the towing fee and dropped it off at the dealer, and just called me up later and said, "Hey, you owe me this money."
Mhm.
And this was the towing fee. He basically towed it to the dealer for free. He just, I had to pay an impound fee, but it's like knowing people like that, it's priceless.
Yes, and it makes your experience, which is already a tough experience,
Right,
easier to process. So I'm
right,
glad. I'm
right.
glad that that you're okay and you
Yeah,
walked away from it.
yeah.
So you work in Orange County. You're a part of Vintage Bike OC. You commute in Orange County. So how long have you been living in California for?
Oh,
And where is your favorite place to ride?
yeah, I've been living in California for almost 40 years. I moved out in 83.
Okay.
And unfortunately, or actually, I no longer commute. I'm working from home now. And
Okay.
since the pandemic, I used to work in Laguna Canyon and I used to ride the canyon every day. And it was an awesome ride, except for the traffic. I mean, but I really missed my ride to work, honestly. And now since 2020, since March of 2020, I've hardly ridden my motorcycle at all. In fact, I got a 2018 Kawasaki Z900 RS Cafe
Mhm.
in March of 2019, and I put 10,000 or 8,000 miles on it in the first year. And since in the last 2 years, I've only put about 1,000 miles on it, and it's kind of sad. But my favorite place around Orange County, hitting San Diego Canyon and Live Oak Canyon. If I go out for a ride, it's usually that loop kind of thing from Costa Mesa out Santiago and maybe down Laguna Canyon to the to PCH and around. But I used to ride a lot up in LA with a KZ group. After I got my KZ, there's a big online forum for KZ riders, and we a half a dozen of us, or usually 8 to 10 of us, used to meet up fairly regularly and ride Mulholland and the Rock Store and two, yeah, up in
Okay.
that area. It's awesome riding. There's so much good riding around Southern California.
Yes, we're definitely spoiled here, and
Oh
especially
yeah,
in Orange County, there's a lot of great spots. So thanks
right.
for sharing those spots for us.
Okay.
And you said that you are, or you used to be a part of a group that does a lot of riding. So what bike are you riding now, or what bikes do you have right now?
Uh, Right now, I have four motorcycles, and my newest one's a 2018 Z900 RS Cafe.
Okay, cool.
And if you're not familiar with that bike, Kawasaki, Kawasaki brought it out in 2017 as an homage to the 1973 Z1, their monster bike that they brought out in 1973. And I have I have three vintage motorcycles. I have a 1977 KZ 1000, which is the up, the same lineage as the Z1. And I have a 1973 CB 750 Honda. And, that's the bike that kind of changed the motorcycle industry. And the interesting thing about my CB 750 is I was riding my KZ 1000 in a charity ride a year after I had it. And a guy said, "Oh, yeah, I got a similar bike to that." And I said, "Oh, what do you got?" And he goes, "Oh, I got a CB 750." And I go, oh, that's what I wanted to buy. And he goes, well, mine's for sale. And I ended up buying it. So I've had the CV 750 almost as long as I've had my KZ. But, um, but right now, sadly, they're kind of sitting in the garage waiting to be ridden. And
Well, in due time.
I do have a little Yamaha QT50 that I've never ridden. It's not running. It's a little 50cc 24-inch bike that I happened to buy from a guy just because he had it for sale, and I thought, oh, I'll take it off your hands.
Well, maybe you can show one of the bikes at the meet coming up. And
Yeah.
speaking of the meet, you've probably seen so many bikes. Well, I know you've seen so many bikes roll
Hmm.
through the meet. So tell me, what one has been your favorite overall and why?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick a favorite, but there's two bikes that owned by the same guy that I think are really cool, and I'm trying to think of it. His name escapes me, right? His name escapes me right now. We've had several winners that have won many, many times. Some guys have won 7 and 8 times because every time they bring a bike. But um, I wish I would have written his name down. But he's got a Norvin. He's got two Norvins, which are Norton Commando engines in a Vincent frame, or I mean, Vincent engines in a Norton featherbed frame. And they're custom, custom put together bikes, but they're just, I mean, that Vincent engine is just so cool looking. Vincent Black Shadow engine is just so cool looking. And we've had Black Shadows at our meet, and those are beautiful motorcycles. And but I probably one of my favorite bikes is the Norvin. This mashup between the Vincent and the Norton. I do like the British bikes a lot. I've never owned a British bike. I got a really nice garage floor, and I don't like a lot of oil on it. I'm just kidding, but yeah, I like them all. So
Okay,
uh,
awesome. So I suppose that would be your dream bike,
uh,
possibly, if need be.
Yeah, I don't know. I do really like my new Z900 RS. I love riding old motorcycles. A buddy of mine, Hobo John, that was involved with the group for since its inception, he passed away in 2017. He drove a 1939 Indian Scout, and I
Okay.
used to ride with Hobo a lot. And his thing was, it's the same wind. It doesn't matter what kind of bike you're on. It's the same wind.
Yeah, I like that.
And yeah, I really do too, because you get people saying, "Oh, this bike's better," and it's like it really doesn't matter what bike you're on, as long as it's running and working well, you
That's
know.
right. And you're having fun, which
Yeah,
kind of
you're
leads
having
me
fun.
to the last question. So what's your dream ride day and where is this dream ride day happening?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I had a lot of fun riding with the KZ guys. That group kind of, I don't know, it kind of I don't know what happened to it, but we haven't ridden in a long time together. Part of it, I got away from that forum maybe a little bit, but just I'd say from what I've ridden, like the Santa Monica Mountains in LA, they provide so many good riding experiences.
Okay.
Those are probably some of the best areas to ride in around here that I know of.
Okay.
In
Awesome.
Orange County, San Diego, and Live Oak, we don't have a lot of roads in Orange County, but around the perimeter, yeah.
Okay. I love that. You're staying true to your roots where you live, where your dream
Yeah,
ride day will be.
yeah. Well, I haven't ridden too far out of Southern California, honestly.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, you hear about rides and the Appalachian and dragon tail or all kind of things. I'm sure I'd like them all.
Right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I really appreciate you talking about Vintage Bike O.C. and we definitely hope to see more people come out after watching the interview today. So I appreciate your time. And yeah, thanks for keeping Vintage Bike O.C. going.
Oh, you're welcome. I really appreciate you taking your time for this
Of
because
course.
hopefully it'll help grow the group and get the message out there and see more vintage bikes.
Of course, yeah. That's why I came out for the first time, and yeah, now I'm
Uh,
coming out monthly. So I'm
uh,
looking forward to seeing you the next meet, and yeah, we'll chat soon.
all right, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.